What's up, guys? It's me, LumosTheromax, and today I'm actually here because of you. That's right, you, because a while back I actually produced a video called My Favorite Lanterns of All Time, and I had a like goal in there. And because of all of you goons out there always liking my videos, speaking of which, like and subscribe, I actually get the opportunity to make this video a follow-up. And I'm going to try to do this a little bit more. So go ham in this video too, hit 75 likes, and you already know I'll create a third video along those lines. But before we continue forward, type down low exactly what you think is going to make it, exactly who you think is going to make it into this video in terms of 5 additional lanterns. No cheating, no looking ahead, because if you get every single one right, I'm going to be a little bit triggered in the comment section. Don't forget to become a Theromax Corps member on my YouTube page and get early access to some of my coolest content and rare content that won't be released on the public page of YouTube. So, with no further ado, let's discover my next 5 favorite lanterns of all time, and let's compare notes as well as see if we got some of the same figures on the same lists. Let's get into it, lanterns. So who could I possibly be bringing to the table first? Okay, because there's a lot of different lanterns out there, and as a general recap, in the last video I had Sinestro, Hal, Kyle, Deathstorm, and Black Hand, all very unique individuals. And of course, what kind of list would this be if I didn't start with the heavy hitter? And the heavy hitter this time around is Voltum, the first of all lanterns that had come to be. Now, if you guys don't know anything about Voltum, be sure to check out my video on him. There's an awesome, in-depth, entire history for his character, as well as everything going on with this power set and everything along those lines. But, spoiler alert, this guy does nothing but kick ass, take names, and break reality, alright? This guy was just another man who faced a tragedy on a foreign world, and essentially there was his tragedy was unavoidable, and so he, Voltum, and his mother discovered the emotional spectrum, and Voltum's plans was to travel across the multiverse, find somebody who could utilize this emotional spectrum that they had found, and essentially figure out whatever the calamity was that was destroying his homeworld. It's a tragic story. He comes across the Guardians, they implant the Great Heart in him, using all of the banished emotions that they had in the moment. The first ring is forged, and then Voltum just begins to slowly but surely lose his mind really early on. I think it's over 10 billion years ago within the timeline. It's just absolutely tragic stuff. And over time, he just essentially goes mad because they were forcing so many emotions in him. And being too emotional can be a bad thing, as he was directly hooked up into the emotional spectrum itself, unlike other lanterns who use a battery or a ring to kind of be like a conduit to maintain that power versus your own physical form, because other people have tried and they just die. Now, that being said, Voltum eventually gets locked up after an engagement with the Guardians and the very first 8 lanterns, but man, later on he just breaks out 10 billion years later and he just assaults reality in the wrath of the first lantern after the Guardians try to siphon off too much of his power, and he fights like everybody ever. This guy is just an absolute monster. I cannot recommend this guy enough. His story is super sad. He's got awesome scaling. He became the very light that formed creation itself inside the hand of Perpetua's. Like, he's just got so much going for him. He's one of the most underrated characters you will ever come across inside DC, in my opinion. And if you don't have him on your list, you're clowning, okay? You're clowning whenever it comes to the top lanterns ever, alright? He's just the GOAT. Like, he fought every single Lantern Corps ever at the same time and was still like, yo, this all you guys got? Like, I'm about to break everything, and this is what you're sending at me? He left like Kyle Rayner like a puddle on the floor of like insecurity, bro. That was just so funny, dude. He wrecks everyone he comes across. Like, Sinestro at one point in time looks at him and he's like, yo, I can stop you, and he's a Green Lantern ring at this point in time, and he runs up and he like stabs him in the chest, right? And he's like, oh wow, you managed to stop me, but just imagine if you didn't, and his reality warping powers just took him back in time and blew up the whole planet Sinestro was on, killing everything he ever cared about. This guy's like a ruthless savage who feeds on your emotions, man. It's just absolutely absurd. Definitely give my boy Voltum a check if you're looking to see some very interesting lanterns. Now, this one here is actually gonna be ultimate hot take level, okay? So, in the great vast world of the Lanternverse and DC in general, I think that there's actually some really cool characters that haven't even made it canonically into the comics, unironically. And Razer from the Green Lantern animated series is a prime example, okay? Razer's story is really sad. Essentially, his planet was a very warring planet, and Atrocitus kind of sets up a situation for Razer to get his loved one killed, the person he was willing to fight for. And without that love, he turns to rage, and a Red Lantern ring finds him. He becomes Atrocitus's, arguably, one of his best, frontline soldiers on the war against the Green Lanterns. But unfortunately, he comes across Hal Jordan at some point in time, as well as Kilowog. And due to a variety of very complicated things, he winds up working with them. Because at the end of the day, Razer wasn't a villain, he was just angry. And his anger was being funneled and directed towards the wrong people because Atrocitus was kind of in charge. Kind of depending on how you see it. Because Atrocitus is kind of, especially in this cartoon, pretty justified, in my opinion. They do a pretty good job of representing the Red Lantern perspective, in my opinion. Even though it's a kid's show. And Razer winds up becoming a really powerful hero, fighting along Hal Jordan, Kilowog, and the entire Green Lantern Corps for a variety of different instances, even against his Red Lantern brothers down the way. Unfortunately, towards the end of the franchise, he takes off his red ring, and in this universe, red rings function a little bit differently. It's okay to do that. And winds up attempting to become a Blue Lantern during the franchise, but fails. And at the end of the franchise, after he regains a new love, and that love is stripped from him, Razer decides to chase the thought of them across the universe because he believes they're still alive after they had fused with the Anti-Monitor. That's right, the Anti-Monitor. And we actually pick up from Young Justice in there, where Razer winds up getting a Blue Lantern ring, and then he becomes a red and blue fusion lantern. That doesn't even make sense. Like, we've never seen that before. Like, this guy's just on a whole different kind of level whenever it comes to the unique things he's done with lantern rings. Because I've seen a lot of color combinations before, but red and blue don't even make sense to be used with one another. So clearly this guy has an incredible amount of emotional control in those two respective fields. Definitely a banger. 9 out of 10 character whenever it comes to fucking Razer, bro. He is awesome. I'd really like to see a follow-up post the stuff we saw in Young Justice. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because none of you poozers actually managed to do so besides like 5% or so. So let's make sure we're following up and making it happen. Let's keep the ball rolling, however. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but as a YouTuber, you can actually see what people search your content for, or search your profile for. And I thought that was really interesting, because one of my favorite lanterns actually matches one of those searches that you guys do for me specifically on my channel. And I guess that means I'm gonna have to stop jobbing and make a video on this guy, because apparently you guys are craving for it. Because next is arguably the funniest lantern of all time, while also being arguably one of the greatest villains. Larflees is one of my favorite lanterns. This guy is a walking goon. On his introduction, he fought the entire Green Lantern Corps, the Guardians, and like prep time like Hal Jordan with a Blue Lantern ring. It was like one of the funniest scenes ever, man. And this is after he killed the controllers who ran up on him before, and he took their souls. Like, after all of that, he defeats everyone present and forces the Guardians of the Universe to negotiate with him. And this is like his first appearance. And this is something that just goes on forever. The Guardians like never want to fuck with Larflees. Larflees is an insanely powerful lantern who's obsessed with the concept of greed. And that greed often is used to his detriment, but more oftentimes is used to his just raw power and destructive benefit. Especially whenever it comes to the confines of his solo run. And in his solo run, he fights an entire pantheon of gods known as the House of Tuath Dan. And one of these gods even was like the lord of everything and was anything and everything in the entire cosmos. Like, it's just absolutely insane. Xum and his entire family are just on a whole nother level. And Larflees just casually beat the shit out of all of them and attempted to claim their souls just like he did everyone else. He slayed angels. He slayed gods. He's beaten the shit out of entire Lantern Corps. He kills you, he claims your souls, and you join his ranks. There's very little not to like about Larflees from like a reading perspective, man. He's crazy entertaining, he's wacky, he's like a Saturday morning cartoon villain who at the snap of a finger can go from like, holy shit, like, I don't smell, it's my underwear, stupid, to like, I'm going to kill you and claim your soul forever. It's just he's one of the most coolest and dynamic characters you can really look at, and he's got so many interesting traits, much like the Joker, as a matter of fact, because every time he tells his origin, it's different, mainly because he doesn't even honestly remember. He's so old, because he's been around for at least 2 billion years, according to some of the stuff in his solo run. Like, it's absolutely maddening, man. 10 out of 10 Lantern. Larflees is the GOAT, as well as he looks like one. Big W in the chat if you all enjoy yourself some Larflees, and make sure you like the video if you agree. Now, here is actually another underrated take whenever it comes to the Lanterns. Unfortunately, there's a lot of characters in the DC mythos that get a lantern ring, but unfortunately, whenever they do, it's short-lived, or the reality is rewritten, or they just wind up getting forgotten as a lantern. And I think this is a really strong case you can make whenever it comes to that. So, in New Genesis, there is a bunch of wildly powerful characters, all of which are willingly following the rule of Highfather. Highfather is this dude who's like in opposition to Darkseid, right? And so, he's got like a bunch of generals, and one of those generals' name is Becca. And Becca is a dangerous character. Not only is she one of the top 9 characters from New Genesis consistently, but more so than that, at one point in time during the Sinestro solo run, as well as the Godhead event, Sinestro who recruits Becca into being a Yellow Lantern, and she has a really tragic story. She never felt respected amongst anybody because she has a passive set of hacks that forces everyone to fall in love with her. And so she wanted to be a warrior. She hated people because they didn't respect her. She couldn't have like any genuine conversation, so she became a warrior to try to earn that respect. But every time she would jump up on the battlefield, all of her opposition would fall in love with her and refuse to fight her, which only enraged her further. Eventually, this power was thrown all the way up to Highfather, and even Highfather felt the siren's call that she kind of had, and so he immediately weaponized her, and eventually she got to the position she's at today. After that war with the Lanterns, Becca winds up activating her lantern ring and being summoned by Sinestro to deal with a major threat, who at this time was Mongol, with all sorts of prep time using Relics technology. And she's a consistent character for the entire Sinestro run, and a very interesting character because she despises the majority of the other Yellow Lanterns, but she can't help but recognize the power that Sinestro kind of has given her, and the opportunity she's been given to actually make people afraid of her and make people respect her in her eyes more so than anything. She's not around hecka long, but she does have some really cool moments where, like I said, she throws hands with Mongol, Sinestro, as well as a few characters on Earth, like Wonder Woman even, which was really cool. This is a character I really wish would have stuck around a little bit longer as a Sinestro Corpsman, and I loved their time with everyone. And it kind of goes to show that new gods can throw hands with lanterns and back and forth. A new god can even get a lantern ring and still isn't considered beyond the likes of Sinestro. But her character overall is pretty sick. And last but not least, I'm gonna roll out a Green Lantern for this list because I haven't really had a Green Lantern on this list so far, even though Voltum clearly is a character who uses a ring that is green. His ring is clearly well beyond just the green scope. But this time around, I'm giving some big shout outs to a character who's been pretty irrelevant in the last decade or so of comics, which is kind of unfortunate given his very big importance throughout the entire history of the Green Lantern Corps in total. Mogo is a character who has all sorts of things going on for him. He's one of the oldest living planets in known history, so much so even Sandman recognizes this. And Mogo's a character who holds a lot of significance for the Corps. People go there, or Lanterns go there for release so they can go somewhere and be safe in the universe for like a vacation. Lanterns go there to get healed, like Red Lantern Guy did, or Guy did after he got exposed to like Red Lantern napalm liquids inside his system. Like, Mogo's just such an important oasis for the Green Lantern Corps. And not only is he kind of like a legit destination spot for a lot of them, but more so than that, Mogo's just a raw powerhouse for the Green Lantern Corps, often ending major conflicts before they've even began on a mass scale, simply because of the massed set of powers that he kind of has at his disposal, being a planet-sized object. And being one of the more powerful members of the Corps consistently is also one of the more beneficial things to him. I think Mogo has got some insane highlights, like when he created a combined emotional assault against the likes of Voltum at one point in time, or even in Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps when he gets amped by like the entire Green Lantern Corps as well as the Sinestro Corps and fires a beam towards this entire group of construct enemies that were an enemy at a time. Like, there's just so much stuff going on for Mogo and everything to do with him. It's a shame we haven't seen him recently outside of one Future State comic which had some very, very, very interesting potential storylines for Mogo that I would really enjoy seeing. He and Joe Moline, the young teen lantern, go through what they call a dark sector, and the central power battery gets cut off while they're in that dark sector, and Mogo loses his consciousness since he has no connection to the direct central power battery. And we know he's been connected to that before. However, he taps into the gauntlet that Kelly Quintella has, and they go on like this whole adventure inside the dark sectors that we never got to finish. That would have been awesome stuff to follow up on. But I could be here all day on Mogo, because Mogo's got some really interesting stuff throughout all of history, and definitely deserves a place on the top lanterns of all time. So what did you all think of my top lanterns of all time, huh? Did you think they were good? Was it garbage? Who knows? Tell me down low. Give me a like. Give me a subscribe. If you guys want to see more content like this, I told you earlier, 75 likes and you already know I'll make another one. And I'll give you guys some of the best lanterns ever. And if you're interested in more just kind of like conversational topics and stuff like this, definitely let me know in the comments, because I like making this stuff a lot, but I don't know if the reception is really there for it. Now, become a Theromax Corps member and you get plenty more content just like this, and you'll even get to see it earlier than anybody else in the public space. So jump up and we'll make it happen. It's been a blast hanging out, and I'm thinking about maybe starting up a series like this that is like the most unknown lanterns. So if you're interested in that, keep supporting me. It only gets better from here, lanterns. Later.